Yeah, I get it. This is a real event. Yes. In her sleep, she does a great deal, according to her. Oh, I know the story. She'll be all over it. She was outside when I found her one night. Hollywood may count Brad Pitt among their idols, but even the most amiable celebrities eventually snap. All sorts of people have graced his screen throughout the years. A mix of method actors, veteran legends, up-and-coming stars, and even a diva or two. Despite his easygoing demeanor, there is a guy behind. Forget all the bombs, ego trips, and betrayals that happen behind the scenes pile up. Now that he's 61 years old and has nothing more to hide, Pitt is coming clean about which actors he will never work with again. These 6 individuals ended up on his radar due to toxic drama and personal fallouts. To a prohibited list, and you might be surprised to hear why. Senator Tom Cruise. Few actors have been able to remain relevant throughout several decades, but Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt have accomplished just that in a business where new talent emerges continually and stars fade just as quickly. These 2 movie stars from Hollywood pioneers began their cinematic careers in the 1980s and have managed to not only survive, but flourish in the ever-changing industry. In 2022, Cruise stunned critics and fans with his high-octane return in Top Gun: Maverick, while Pitt stood out as Cliff Booth in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he also won an Oscar award-winning independent feature for producing. Unfortunately, the path to success was not easy for either guy. Cruise and Pitt's early difficulties were so similar that it's surprising they never became close. Actually, they've always had a more business-like connection. More distant, and even cold at times. Interview with the Vampire, a gothic horror film released in 1994, was their sole significant cinematic collaboration. The film's production was far from flawless, despite its cult success. In retrospect, Brad Pitt defined it as terrible, mostly because of the chilly, dreary shooting circumstances and the lengthy periods spent in dimly lit locations. However, there were other difficulties besides pain on set. The fact that Pitt and Cruise's personalities didn't mesh made their collaboration challenging, as Pitt himself acknowledged. While Cruise exuded an air of direct passion and tremendous energy, Pitt perceived him as more reserved and shy. Because of the contrast, there was an air of silent animosity, a subtle competition that kept the two from developing any genuine bond. That dormant tension appeared to resurface years later. Pitt was in Glorious Bastards, directed by Quentin Tarantino, in 2009, and Cruise was in Valkyrie, another World War II-themed picture, in 2008. At about the same time, Pitt was quoted in a German interview as saying that Valkyrie was silly, which caused a lot of confusion. His lawyers wasted no time denying the accusation, arguing that their client had never even had the opportunity to view the film and discover that the quotation was appropriated. The complicated relationship between the two celebrities was further complicated, whether by a real misunderstanding or by something else entirely. When Angelina Jolie became involved, things became even more complicated. It was 2010 when Tom Cruise was in deep discussions to play the lead part in the upcoming spy thriller Salt, but Angelina Jolie was ultimately cast. Despite Cruise's lack of an official contract, studio scheduling and the desire to secure a lead allegedly prompted the swap. Casting Jolie nonetheless caused a stir, because she was already married to Pitt. Raised eyebrows. You could almost see Pitt amusedly watching the scene evolve, even though he may not have had a say in the process. Additional speculation surfaced following Jolie and Pitt's widely reported 2017 breakup. The rumor mill started circulating that Jolie and Cruise were engaging in a private discussion to deliberate over a possible film project, and the possibility that sparks were flying. Jolie may have taken pleasure in causing controversy, since one person said Pitt was distressed by the scenario. However, there was never any truth to the romance rumors. They were merely that, rumors. In 2019, fans were thrilled when Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise were almost back together on screen in the Oscar-winning Ford v Ferrari, nearly 10 years after their last collaboration. There was a brief moment when it appeared like the reunion was going to materialize, but financial considerations ultimately prevented it. When the two stars, paying high dollar, the film couldn't proceed without them because of the maths. A fresh flurry of conjecture followed. Again, it was Aaron Taylor Johnson, who co-starred with Pitt in Bullet Train, who set things off. One interview that Taylor Johnson gave to Variety revealed that he maintains a record of performers he declines to collaborate with, using derogatory language to describe them. The internet did the rest, even though he didn't name names. Given the long-running rumors about conflict behind the scenes, both fans and insiders started to wonder if Tom Cruise was on that list. Within the most exclusive circles of Hollywood. In the meantime, Pitt was getting ready for his next big move, a highly publicized Formula One film. Joseph Kosinski, the filmmaker who had previously collaborated with Cruise on Top Gun, Maverick, was the driving force behind the announcement, which further added to its attention-grabbing nature. I mean, come on, the comparisons. Gossip of a simmering feud began to circulate once again, and the process began quickly. Cruise reportedly wasn't overjoyed by the news, but he chose not to address it publicly. Rumor has it that he isn't exactly thrilled to see Pitt stepping into the spotlight of a genre he helped revive. One of Hollywood's most understated rivalries, Harrison Ford, was supposedly born out of these two performers' years-long secret competition for the same jobs. Rumors of a potential sequel have been circulating behind the scenes of The Devil's Zone ever since its 1997 theatrical release. Conflict between the film's two leading actors, Brad Pitt and Harrison Ford. Both actors kept mum about it for a long time, which led to suspicion. However, as time went on, details about the true tale began to emerge, exposing a complex and somewhat disorganized production that put both of their professionalism and patience. Intensity was abundant throughout the film. Brad Pitt portrayed an undercover IRA agent masquerading as an immigrant, while Harrison Ford was a cordial New York City police officer. Pitt, the protagonist, was drawn farther and deeper into the perilous underworld of terrorist acts, treachery, and ethical quandaries. On set, tensions were high, but off-camera, tensions were equally high. The difference this time was that the conflict was unscripted. Ford claims that problems with the script's trajectory started early on. Pitt was involved in the script's development from the start, and Ford added his thoughts when he joined the project later. As filming got underway, the creative differences between the two became a major source of conflict due to their vastly divergent ideas for the film, aiming to increase complex personality traits. In fact, he suggested a storyline in which his character resigns from the NYPD and struggles with remorse over lying to protect a teammate who shot an unarmed thief. Contrarily, Pitt wished to maintain the story's original tone and emphasis. The conflict raged on till selecting an executive. Pitt had never worked with Alan J. Pakula before, but Ford had, so they settled on him. Even while filming was underway, the script was rewritten multiple times due to the absence of a cohesive creative concept. Afterwards, Ford acknowledged that they were literally shaping the film scene by scene as production progressed, and the stars weren't entirely in agreement on the final script. In retrospect, Pitt said that working on the set was the most difficult thing he had ever done for a picture. He denied rumors of on-set meltdowns or huge egos, but he did make. The production was obviously a disaster. The crew and actors were left to wing it, when the first promising draft was discarded. A 3-month shoot turned into a 7-month ordeal. Pitt thought the entire thing was ridiculous because it was unpredictable, frustrating, and, in his view, illogical. Attempt to address artistic challenges by providing financial support. Ironically, Ford came away from the encounter with a considerably more favorable outlook than Pitt, who was openly critical of it. According to him, the film was enjoyable, and he was grateful for the complexity it gave his role. However, although they always spoke highly of each other, the tension between the two performers was palpable. Ford praised Pitt for his talent and character, and Pitt went on to say that Ford remained calm and collected throughout the whole thing. But the critics weren't so lenient with The Devil's Own. It was widely perceived as skipped over the Northern Ireland conflict's historical and political significance. When Pitt tried to sound Irish, nobody was impressed. Even though reviews were divided, the film did well at the box office, grossing about $140 million. It would appear that the animosity between Pitt and Ford has entirely subsided in the time subsequent. Disagreements between them were less about hostility and more about divergent artistic goals. The production may have been a shambles, but Pitt learned a lot from it. One that revealed to him the true nature of high-budget, unpredictable, and stressful filmmaking. Fight Club, David Fincher's 1999 thriller starring Courtney Love, is one of the few films that has stood the test of time. I can't get enough of it. People quote it, analyze it, and referenced. It wasn't always like that, though. The picture bombed at the box office upon its initial release. Audiences were perplexed, critics were divided, and Fight Club appeared destined for a peaceful demise. However, as time passed, a change occurred. It became recognized, gained a large cult following, and cemented its position in the annals of popular culture. While Fincher's daring direction and incisive screenplay deserve much of the credit, the ensemble cast was also instrumental. Superb acting came from Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, with Helena Bonham Carter stealing the show. Bonham Carter gave Mara Singer a strikingly unfiltered and memorable edge. Looking back, Edward Norton remarked that the set was unexpectedly humorous, rather than dark or tense. Despite the film's heavy subject matter, messages of anarchy, masculinity, and identity, the performers seemed surprisingly open and fun. It wasn't an easy road for Helena Bonham Carter to take on the role of Marlowe. Fincher was told about her by Brad Pitt, who had seen her in The Wings of the Dove. Fincher was persuaded after viewing her work. However, Carter did not. Of course, she confessed that upon initially reading the script, she was confused and questioned the film's intended message and meaning. However, other actresses were also considered. Courtney Love, who subsequently asserted that she was one of many names that lingered in relation to the part, was among many. Debuting in the role of Mara Singer. It turns out that assertion is actually the first twist of a very complicated tale. Courtney Love's association with Fight Club continues her reputation for a life filled with drama and hostility. She claimed in a podcast interview that she was kicked out of, following an intense argument with Brad Pitt about the project. She claims that Pitt and director Gus Van Sant approached her with a proposal for a Kurt Cobain biopic, a highly delicate subject for a woman who had tragically lost her husband and was still trying to come to terms with his death. She remembered experiencing. It seems as though Pitt misunderstood her late spouse and did not have faith in his project objectives. Major repercussions resulted from that dispute, according to her account of events. She asserts that her dismissal from Fight Club followed her rejection of the Cobain biopic proposal. She was in a relationship with Edward Norton, and she claims that it was Norton who delivered the devastating news, rendered helpless to alter the outcome. She adds later that Fincher personally contacted her to finalize the deal. Others on set have cast doubt on her story, with some going so far as to claim she was never formally cast. Love still feels no animosity towards Helena Bonham Carter, despite everything that has happened. Even though she has confessed she has never watched Fight Club, she thinks Carter was Mara's ideal partner. Despite her ongoing feelings against the film's producers, she has spoken highly about Edward Norton, David Fincher, and everyone else involved. Continue to bother her about the way she thinks Brad Pitt dealt with the situation. Over the years, Love has made no secret of her desire to have Kurt Cobain's narrative accurately portrayed. She even considered turning his life story into a musical at one point. It was 2014 when she was in the midst of casting her quest for a leading man, expressing to the press her desire to find a young, attractive actor who could embody Kurt's charisma. But the film was never made, despite the persistent rumors. The latest spark occurred when Love mentioned Pitt through his. In 2020, she was approached once more by production company Plan B for the biopic. Despite her agreement to meet, she left feeling ignored and uncared for. She went on to reaffirm her account in a series of social media posts, this time claiming its veracity. Her problem, she claimed, wasn't just alongside the film, as it pertained to Pitt's utilization of his industrial power. She criticized his performance as a producer, but also admitted to a reluctance to fully appreciate him as an actor. After reviewing all of the comments and interviews, one aspect remains unambiguous. Kurt Cobain's legacy is something that Courtney Love is hell-bent on preserving. There may never be a definitive answer as to whether her assertion that her dismissal from Fight Club was due to that exact cause is really true or not. Brad Pitt, Michael Madsen. Pitt may have millions of devoted followers all across the globe. However, in 2009, one of his former co-stars wasn't exactly gushing over him. When asked about Pitt over 20 years after the fact, Michael Madsen, who co-starred with Pitt in the 1991 road movie Thelma and Louise, had some very direct remarks. Madsen wasted no time getting down to brass tacks when TMZ tracked him out at the airport that year and brought up Pitt's most recent flick, Inglourious Basterds. After seeing enough of Pitt, he reasoned, most others must have felt the same way. Although they rarely worked together on screen, Pitt and Madsen's careers continued to entwine. The identical spheres, frequently coming into contact with one crucial character, Quentin Tarantino. The renowned filmmaker has worked with both actors for many years. Madsen had previously established himself in Tarantino's universe with, and Pitt would later star in, Inglourious Basterds. Notable parts in Kill Bill, The Hateful Eight, and Reservoir Dogs. Rumor has it that Madsen was going to be a part of Inglourious Basterds at one point, but plans fell through. During an interview with New York Magazine, he joked that once upon a time, there was a major studio that he had no clue if he was genuinely in or out. Overall, the situation seemed to be in a state of flux. Nevertheless, he clung to the notion that Tarantino may summon him in the final moments. It seems like something else totally was causing the stress, even though Inglourious Basterds was a squandered chance. Hollywood and TMZ have reported it. According to Reuters, Madsen was more displeased that the coward Robert Ford had turned down a role in the 2007 Western The Assassination of Jesse James. Pitt did double duty as the film's producer and star. After Madsen declined to audition, he asserted that he was ignored, confessing that he was uneasy with the process and had difficulty with it. Madsen wasn't bashful about expressing his dismay when Sam Shepard was cast in the role. He thought Pitt ought to have defended him, particularly because he thought he was younger than Shepard and more suited to play Frank James. Even though it's 2019 now, the two actors played a starring role in Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. However, destiny intervened such that they were never seen together. Pitt won an Academy Award for his portrayal of the easygoing stuntman Cliff Booth, who was the showstopper, while playing has a little part in a made-up TV series that runs alongside Leonardo DiCaprio's character in the film. Ultimately, despite the fact that their professional paths crossed, it appears that the emotional interaction between Madsen and Pitt stayed distant, characterized by regrets, lost opportunities, and a trace of animosity. Katrina Kaulitz. In a number of critically praised franchise films and epic dramas, two of Hollywood's most revered and honored performers, Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett, have appeared together on screen. But there's a strong probability that viewers won't notice them despite the obvious chemistry they have on screen, working in tandem once more. Some typical Hollywood discomfort, public drama, and private tensions lie beneath that unexpected truth. The scandal surrounding Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's romance is the starting point. Even when they were at the height of their power, married couple, together, they were unstoppable. Their relationship mesmerized onlookers because of their glitz, elusiveness, and constant presence in the limelight. However, not everyone in the vicinity shared the enthusiasm of the spectators. While filming Brad and Cate Blanchett were reconciled. His actual relationship with Angelina, which was the subject of Curious Case of Benjamin Button, was already in the spotlight. Behind the scenes, it was also front and center, according to Cate. Seeing Brad be so utterly smitten with Angelina was repulsive and terrible, she quipped later in an interview. She stated it all with a lighthearted tone, of course. Iconic Cate making light of the situation with her trademark sarcastic humor. There was more going on than simply some caustic banter, yet the words nonetheless generated a lot of headlines. Observations made by the group indicate that Brad first declined to film a love scene with Cate because he was so committed to his romance with Angelina. The fact that he was hesitant before finally going through with it shows how porous the boundaries are between personal allegiance and professional duty in the entertainment industry. It isn't always as simple as it appears for actors at that level to maintain a balance between scripted fiction and emotional reality. No matter how intense the situation was, Cate has managed to look back on it with a lighthearted attitude. Her remarks revealed more than just an inside look. The intimate details of their famous people have the power to shape and, at times, muddy the waters of the plots taking place in films. Jolie Angelina. No one could have foreseen how tangled things would become between Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt after they announced their split in 2016. They first crossed paths in 2003, when filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith, more than 10 years ago. Acting as a married couple of undercover killers, the two actors grew close on set. While speaking within 2006, Vogue, Jolie discussed the development of their friendship throughout filming. She claimed that simply thinking about the daily exploits they had on site made her look forward to going to work. However, Brad Pitt's marriage to Jennifer Aniston remained intact during that period. Thus, he and Jolie publicly claimed that their love was pure. An expert. When Pitt and Aniston announced their breakup in 2005, it all changed. Brad and Angelina started a new chapter in their lives together shortly after. Now we're in August of 2014. The newlyweds opted against a lavish Hollywood ceremony in favor of choose a smaller, more private wedding in France attended by only 20 close relatives and friends. Because all 6 of their children were present at the wedding, it was a very important day. However, everything came crashing down just 2 years later. September 2016. Irreconcilable differences were the grounds for Jolie's divorce filing. The filing signified more than simply the dissolution of a marriage. It revealed a severely damaged relationship and set in motion years of legal disputes and accusations. The news that Jolie had divorced soon was divulged in her countersuit, in the aftermath of a terrifying event involving a private jet. Pitt was already anxious before departure, according to her legal team. He apparently had an argument with a child, confronted Angelina Jolie in the lavatory, and then acted out forcefully during the trip. A disorganized scene was depicted in the legal document. Pitt allegedly escalated his aggression when Jolie's older sibling attempted to defend her. He allegedly lunged at the kid, which prompted her to seize him by the behind. His purported response was, injuring Jolie's back and elbow, he threw his body backward into the plane seats. Pitt allegedly choked one child and hit another in the face when other children attempted to step in, according to the records. And Kylie, Pitt's attorney, strongly denied the allegations and referred to them as totally incorrect. The statement did not deny that Pitt was not perfect during their marriage, but it did reject the notion that Jolie was blameless. The people working for him claimed that he had been the target of persistent lies and personal insults. In the midst of the court dispute over the couple's former French winery, Chateau Marolles, one of the most explosive moments occurred. When Jolie sold a half-interest in the estate to a Russian oligarch in 2021, it all flared up again. In 2022, Pitt reacted to the move by pursuing legal action, which shocked him. Opposing her, he said that his ex-wife had sold her part in order to financially harm him, and that the sale was a premeditated attack on his economic interests and pride. The tug-of-war over legal matters simply grew worse. Jolie refiled her court paperwork in 2024, revealing that her original plan was to sell her share to Pitt personally, but that talks allegedly stalled after he demanded that she sign a non-disclosure agreement. There was more than simply business involved with this NDA, as stated in her filing. She would have been unable to openly address the accusations, maltreatment that she and the kids endured. Jolie's lawyers asserted that the actress had intentionally shielded Pitt from public scrutiny by linking her silence to the winery's operation, particularly in light of earlier accusations relating to the tumultuous plane flight. We already covered how the flight became pivotal to their legal battles. According to reports, it was the initial encounter their children had with the conduct that would eventually be included in their mother's legal grievances. Jolie's camp maintained that control, not money, was at the heart of the Marolles issue. Allegedly, Pitt was trying to convince Jolie to stay by utilizing the winery. Quiet. The rift between Pitt and his 6 kids only deepened throughout this time. Those in the know said that by 2024, Pitt's relationship with his children had grown strained, if not entirely severed. The mental and emotional toll of child custody disputes and public. Some of the kids had grown apart from their dad due to disagreements. Particularly impacted were Maddox and Pax. In a scathing Father's Day statement, Pax went so far as to publicly condemn Pitt, accusing him of being emotionally abusive and disrespectful towards his worries about their younger siblings. He further said that Pitt was attempting to influence the news to his advantage. However, Pitt allegedly decided against taking revenge despite the public outcry. The comments broke his heart, but he chose silence in the hopes of avoiding raising the stakes even higher. But there was no mistaking the chasm. Even as early as 2016, Maddox began to distance himself from his father by not showing up to family events and explicitly stating that he did not want any communication with him. The children began as the legal struggle progressed, become increasingly involved in the battle for custody. Documents submitted by Jolie's legal team in 2021 reveal that 3 of the older children desired to address the private judge by name. Reportedly, Pitt was not pleased with the choice that included Shiloh, which was made public in 2024. Maddox had previously testified as an adult in 2021, and this event echoed that. Rumor has it that he painted the actor in a negative light in his memoirs on his time spent with Pitt. The removal of the judge presided over a reevaluation of the court's decision to give shared custody. In their appeal, Jolie's legal team said the judge hadn't given enough weight to the teens' points of view or the psychological toll the ordeal had on them. The children's voices were supposedly heard by mental health professionals and taken into consideration when the decision was made, according to some stories. It turned into something regardless of the result. It's becoming more and more apparent that Pitt's connection with his children may never be the same. Jolie has been very private about the divorce, but her latest interviews give an indication of how much it has affected her. While speaking with Times Radio, she dropped hints about her weariness from the years after the breakup, during which she wondered if she still had anything to offer as an artist or performer. She made an astute observation regarding her strong preference for honesty in an additional interview with W Magazine, saying that she finds it intolerable when individuals put on an act. To many, it was a sly dig at Pitt. According to family insiders, Jolie's children were pressuring her to tell her side of the tale by 2025. She has stayed generally silent because, according to reports, she felt it would be more significant to concentrate on pushing for legislative reforms to assist others who are going through the same things. For tuning in, I am grateful. Like, subscribe, comment, and enable post alerts to receive updates when we publish new content if you liked it.